It's interesting how the calmest people often become most visible when pressure rises, even though they make no effort to stand out. When tension spreads across a room and voices begin to overlap, their presence feels like a pause in the middle of motion. While others rush to explain, justify, or regain control, they stay where they are, breathing evenly, watching the moment unfold. You feel their steadiness before you understand it, the way you notice still air right before a storm passes. It creates a quiet contrast that draws attention without asking for it, and almost instinctively a question forms in your mind. How does someone remain like this while everything else feels unstable? Most people assume calmness belongs to temperament, something wired into a person from the beginning. It feels easier to believe that some people simply care less, feel less, or stay untouched by emotional weight. Yet that explanation rarely holds up when you look closer at how calm people actually live. Many of them remember a time when silence felt unbearable, and every emotional shift demanded a response. They spoke quickly, reacted sharply, and carried conversations long after they ended. Calmness arrived later, shaped by experience rather than inheritance. Stress reveals this difference more clearly than any theory ever could. A plan falls apart, a deadline slips, or a misunderstanding lands in the middle of an already heavy day. One person responds immediately, filling the space with urgency, explanations, and emotion. Another takes a breath, lets the moment stretch, and allows the noise to settle before speaking. The situation stays the same, yet the weight of it feels entirely different. One response adds friction, while the other seems to absorb it. If you have lived long enough, you start recognizing the cost of constant reaction. Words spoken in heat linger far longer than intended. Quick responses demand repair later. Emotional intensity drains energy that never fully returns. Calm people reach a point where that cost becomes impossible to ignore. They grow tired in a way sleep cannot fix. Tired of replaying conversations. Tired of carrying tension home. Tired of feeling responsible for every emotional ripple around them. That tiredness becomes a turning point. Instead of asking how to respond faster, they begin wondering what would happen if they waited. At first, waiting feels unnatural, even risky, like leaving a door open during bad weather. The mind stays alert, rehearsing possible outcomes, preparing for misunderstandings. Then the moment passes, and nothing breaks. Sometimes the issue softens on its own. Sometimes the other person reveals more without pressure. Sometimes clarity arrives simply because time had room to do its work. This is where calmness quietly takes root. It grows through small choices repeated over time. The choice to pause instead of rush, to listen instead of interrupt, to let emotion move before acting on it. Calm people still feel anger, sadness, and frustration, yet they experience those emotions as signals rather than commands. They learn that urgency often comes from discomfort rather than necessity. With practice, the nervous system adjusts, and the body stops treating every emotional spike as an emergency. You can see this difference in everyday interactions, especially in conversation. One person fills every silence, worried that space might be misread. Another allows gaps to exist, trusting that meaning survives a pause. One conversation feels heavy afterward, loaded with things that need clarification. Another fades gently, leaving no residue behind. Over time, people begin responding differently to that steadiness, even if they never name it. At work, calm individuals often become anchors without trying to. When something goes wrong and tension spreads, people gravitate toward whoever keeps the atmosphere from collapsing further. Calmness lowers the emotional temperature of a room. It creates space for thinking rather than reacting. Decisions made in that environment tend to last longer, simply because they were not born from panic. Speed looks impressive in short bursts, yet pressure rarely disappears after a sprint. Those who run at full intensity burn out quickly. Those who move steadily keep going. Calm people understand this intuitively. They conserve energy, choosing when to engage and when to step back. This selectivity sometimes gets mistaken for distance, yet it often reflects awareness of personal limits. Relationships reveal this contrast even more clearly. In moments of emotional tension, one person pushes for immediate resolution while the other needs time to process. At first, this difference creates friction. One feels overwhelmed, the other feels rushed. With time, however, the steady presence becomes easier to be around. Conversations lose their sharp edges. Fewer words need to be taken back. Emotional safety grows quietly, built from repeated moments where reactions remain contained. People open up more around calm individuals, often without realizing why. They speak freely, trusting that their words will land without triggering chaos. Calmness becomes a form of emotional shelter, something felt rather than explained. It invites honesty by reducing fear of reaction. In a world where many people brace themselves before speaking, that ease feels rare. Calm people also develop a different relationship with uncertainty. Delayed answers feel tolerable. Pauses in communication feel spacious rather than threatening. They trust that clarity often arrives after intensity fades. This patience changes how life feels internally. The mind grows quieter. Thoughts stop colliding. Emotional recovery takes less effort. Emotion to them resembles weather rather than identity. A storm passes through without defining the landscape beneath it. Waiting becomes a skill rather than avoidance. With enough experience, calmness stops feeling like something to practice and starts feeling like a place to stand. This shift carries a trade-off. Calm people give up some immediacy in exchange for clarity. They sacrifice intensity for depth. They accept being misunderstood at times because they value peace more than performance. That choice shapes their lives quietly, influencing who stays close and what kind of energy surrounds them. Over time, calmness reshapes perspective. Effort no longer equals control. Caring deeply no longer requires constant reaction. Some things unfold regardless of intensity, and fighting that reality only adds weight. Acceptance lightens the load, allowing attention to settle where it matters most. People often lean on calm individuals during difficult moments. This role emerges naturally rather than through intention. It grows from consistency, from knowing that emotional storms lose strength around someone who remains steady. Calmness becomes a presence that reassures without promising certainty. And yet calm people remain human. They feel deeply. They experience doubt, grief, and frustration like anyone else. The difference lies in how they move through those states. They allow emotion to pass before shaping action. They trust that time carries wisdom that urgency cannot provide. As calmness settles in, life begins to sound different. Noise loses its pull. Silence feels supportive rather than empty. The urge to respond to everything fades, replaced by a quieter confidence. Calmness turns into discernment, guiding where energy flows and where it rests. You may recognize yourself somewhere in this shift, especially if chaos once felt exciting and now feels exhausting. Perhaps silence has started to feel safer than noise. Perhaps understanding has begun to matter more than winning. Those changes signal growth rather than retreat. Calmness never arrives all at once. It builds through long nights, difficult conversations, and moments where restraint felt uncomfortable yet necessary. Each pause strengthens it. Each decision to wait deepens it. Slowly, it becomes part of how a person meets the world. As calmness settles into someone's life, the changes rarely arrive in obvious ways. There's no clear moment where everything suddenly feels peaceful, no ceremony marking the transition. Instead, it shows up quietly in small situations most people overlook. A comment that once would have provoked a reaction now passes without friction. A delay that once caused anxiety now feels tolerable. The absence of urgency becomes noticeable, almost strange at first. Calmness doesn't announce itself, yet it slowly rearranges how life is experienced from the inside. One of the first places this difference becomes visible is in how calm people are treated by others. They are trusted with heavier conversations, not because they demand responsibility, but because they don't collapse under it. When emotions rise, people instinctively seek out whoever keeps the ground steady. Calmness acts like ballast on a ship, preventing sudden movements from capsizing everything. Others may speak louder, faster, and with more certainty, yet calm people often carry the weight that holds things together. This trust grows over time, built from repeated moments where calm individuals absorb tension rather than amplify it. In meetings, conversations, or family gatherings, they become the person others look toward when emotions start spilling over. Their steadiness signals safety, even when no solutions appear immediately. In a world filled with reaction, steadiness becomes rare currency. People may not articulate why they feel drawn to it, yet they feel the difference in their bodies. Contrast is with someone who reacts quickly to everything. Their intensity may feel engaging at first, even passionate. Over time, however, others begin preparing themselves before speaking. Words get filtered. Honesty becomes cautious. Emotional energy shifts toward managing reactions rather than sharing truth. The person who reacts to everything rarely notices this shift until distance quietly forms around them. Calm people rarely chase connection, yet it often finds them. Their presence invites openness without pressure. Conversations feel easier, less charged. Silence feels supportive rather than awkward. People speak without rehearsing. Calmness lowers the emotional cost of being honest. In relationships, this quality matters more than charm or persuasion because it creates space where trust can grow naturally. There is, however, a side of calmness that receives far less attention. The same steadiness that attracts trust can also create distance. Calm people often get misunderstood, especially in emotionally intense environments. Their restraint may look like indifference. Their silence may be read as withdrawal. Their pauses may be mistaken for lack of care. These misunderstandings can sting, particularly for people who feel deeply but express selectively. In heated moments, calm individuals may find themselves standing alone. Others react together, feeding off shared urgency, while the calm person remains outside that emotional current. The room moves fast, and they stay still. That separation can feel isolating, especially when being understood matters. Calmness sometimes requires accepting that others may misread your intentions before they recognize your consistency. This is the price many calm people pay quietly. They give up being immediately understood in exchange for long-term clarity. They accept moments of loneliness for the sake of peace. They choose restraint, even when expression might bring quick relief. That choice shapes their emotional landscape, making it less dramatic yet more stable. Consider how calm people handle conflict. Instead of escalating, they allow space. They listen longer than feels comfortable. They speak when the moment opens rather than when emotion peaks. This approach can frustrate those who seek instant resolution. Silence feels like avoidance to someone craving immediate reassurance. Yet calm people understand how much damage can occur when words arrive too early. Time becomes an ally rather than an enemy. With distance, emotions soften. Perspective widens. What once felt urgent loses its grip. Calm people trust this process, having watched it unfold many times before. They know how often clarity arrives after intensity fades. That trust allows them to wait without feeling anxious. This patience shapes decision-making as well. Calm people rarely rush into conclusions. They allow situations to reveal themselves gradually. Patterns emerge without force. Motives become clearer. Decisions made from this place tend to carry fewer regrets, simply because they were not driven by emotional urgency. Calmness, in this sense, becomes a filter that removes noise before action. Another subtle shift appears in how calm individuals experience their inner world. Emotional waves still arrive, yet they no longer define the entire landscape. Anger rises, then passes. Sadness lingers, then loosens its grip. Fear surfaces, then dissolves into awareness. Calm people stop identifying with each emotion as if it were permanent. Feelings become visitors rather than rulers. This shift reduces mental clutter. Thoughts slow down. Replaying conversations loses its appeal. The mind spends less time defending imaginary arguments. Calmness frees attention for what actually exists in the present moment. Life feels lighter, even when circumstances remain challenging. The weight lifted belongs to unnecessary resistance rather than difficulty itself. Over time, calm people develop an intuitive sense of energy. They recognize how easily it drains when spent on the wrong things. They choose carefully where attention goes. Arguments that lead nowhere lose their pull. Proving a point feels less satisfying than preserving peace. This selectivity can appear aloof to others, yet it reflects an understanding of personal limits. Imagine energy as water carried in your hands. Reacting to everything causes it to spill constantly. Calmness teaches you how to hold it steady. You may move slower, yet you arrive with more left to give. That reserve becomes noticeable in moments of crisis, when others feel depleted and you remain present. Calmness also reshapes ambition. Success no longer centers on constant motion or visible achievement. Inner stability becomes its own measure. Calm people still strive, yet they do so without sacrificing themselves in the process. They recognize how easily relentless pressure erodes joy. Progress feels sustainable rather than exhausting. In social settings, calm individuals rarely dominate attention. They speak with intention rather than volume. When they do speak, others listen, partly because their words arrive without excess. Silence sharpens perception. Calm people notice details others miss, shifts in tone, unspoken tension. The moment a conversation changes direction, their awareness deepens because they are not busy reacting. This heightened awareness makes them sensitive to emotional undercurrents. They sense when someone needs space rather than advice. They recognize when words would complicate rather than help. Listening becomes their primary tool. This kind of listening feels rare, almost therapeutic, because it carries presence without judgment. People feel seen without being analyzed. As calmness matures, it influences how individuals relate to uncertainty. The unknown stops feeling like a threat that demands immediate closure. Questions can remain unanswered without causing distress. Calm people trust themselves to handle outcomes as they arrive. That trust replaces the need for constant control. Life, of course, continues testing them. Calm people still experience loss, disappointment, and moments where composure falters. They feel anger, they break down, they doubt themselves. The difference lies in recovery. They know how to return to stillness without fighting themselves. They allow emotion to move through, then let it go. This cycle becomes familiar. Feeling, allowing, releasing. Calmness lives in that rhythm rather than in perfection. Each return strengthens confidence. Each storm survived quietly reinforces trust in oneself. Calm people stop expecting life to be fair. They accept its unpredictability without bitterness. As years pass, calmness becomes visible in lifestyle choices. Simpler routines replace chaotic schedules. Quiet rituals anchor days. A walk, a cup of tea, a moment of silence before sleep. These habits steady the nervous system, offering predictability in a changing world. Calm people protect these moments because they understand how easily the mind spins stories without rest. Gradually, noise loses its attraction. Drama feels heavy rather than exciting. Calm people prefer depth over intensity. They choose environments that support their inner rhythm. This shift may reduce the number of connections in their lives, yet the ones that remain feel more authentic. People sometimes describe calm individuals as old souls, not because of age, but because of perspective. They have seen enough cycles to recognize how quickly moments pass. What once felt unbearable now feels survivable. That understanding radiates outward, offering reassurance without promises. In a world obsessed with speed and reaction, calmness becomes a quiet form of strength. It doesn't shout, it doesn't compete, it holds its ground. Calm people stop trying to control every outcome. They trust themselves to respond when the time comes. That trust carries a gravity others feel instinctively. Eventually, calmness reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone constantly responding to life and start experiencing yourself as someone moving with it. The urge to prove fades. Validation loses urgency. Peace becomes something you carry rather than chase. If you've ever noticed yourself craving silence, more than excitement, clarity more than certainty, understanding more than winning, you may already be moving in this direction. That shift marks growth rather than retreat. Calmness doesn't remove emotion, it refines it. At its deepest level, calmness reflects self-respect. It honors your limits, it protects your energy, it allows you to stay present without being consumed. In choosing calm, you choose freedom from unnecessary chaos. Life continues unfolding, unpredictable as ever. Yet calm people meet it differently. They pause before reacting. They listen before speaking. They wait before deciding. Each choice reinforces the next, building a steady foundation beneath their lives. And when the world grows loud again, as it always does, their calm remains. Quiet, grounded, resilient. A strength felt rather than announced. Calmness isn't the absence of feeling. It's the ability to stay whole while feeling everything. And once you learn that, peace stops being something you search for. It becomes something you live inside.